about now? Can you hear me now? Nina, can you hear me? Can you hear any audio now? I'm hoping you can hear audio. I didn't realize one of my settings was turned all the way down. If you're able to hear me, just type it whenever you hear me actually ask, and I will just continue with what I'm working on. So how are you doing this evening? I am working on a little bit of an Overwatch fan art piece. We got Mercy here cutting in front of Reaper, who's trying to reap someone. Let's see. Glad you told me my audio wasn't working, because that would have been been a really silent pod. Really silent stream going on here. Yep, that line gets undone. Oh man, now I don't even remember what I was yammering about. Just talking away. Probably something about the costumes. The little tiny details and crap in the costumes. Doesn't matter. Not important. How's your evening going? Are you having a good time? Also, feel free to ask me any questions at all. I'll answer them as soon as they pop up in front of me. Check my reference again for those wings. I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Having a good time, just trying to get some drawing done every day. And today I fell behind when I was just doing my pencil sketches because I got this idea for this crazy illustration. So I was like, you know what? I'll just stream it when I get home, and then other people can enjoy it. So you're trying to learn how to draw. Are you trying to learn how to draw with like pen and paper, digitally, both? Is there anything in particular that you like to draw? I know those are pretty loaded questions, so taking a look at the scale and shape here. I'm feeling I really like that arm placement. I think her shoulders are too high. That's a little bit better. Okay. Yeah, I'd be happy to answer any kind of questions you have about like getting started, learning to draw, anything like that. So I mean, feel free to ask. Um, the learning to draw in general is kind of a loaded, like it's a loaded question and answer, um, to which the trick to getting better is always unfortunately going to be, well, just draw more. Uh, but there are definitely like tricks you can do to get better at specific things. You start with pen and paper, and since you can't afford to draw digitally yet, um, cartoony manga. Uh, okay. So pen and paper is definitely a good place to start. You're gonna learn the fundamentals doing that. You're gonna learn the basics, um, and those are universal, regardless whether you're doing digital, traditional, painting, uh, manga, comics. It all comes down to the basics. Um, and then from there you'll pick up tricks that benefit you in one area or another. I'm gonna keep trying to work here while I'm talking to you. Um, Manga, cartoony manga. Now, I know a lot of people that go into cartoon manga styles, and they do that for lots of different reasons, various reasons. One, because they like it. Two, because it's easier than what they would assume is. Uh, I don't know. I don't want to say that. That's a little bit of a overgeneralization. Um, the what's considered to be like traditional art is, or fine art, as it were, is definitely a daunting um, kind of style to kind of learn because everything's expected to look like it does in real life. Um, and that can be really, really daunting to people, especially beginners. And so I know that stylized looks or very overly exaggerated styles help they help mask um, a lot of lack of understanding of the like fundamental structure and stuff like that. Um, I feel bad even just saying that. That's a real over classification of. I mean that's painting a huge big brush saying, well, everybody that does these styles, they don't know how to draw, and I don't want to sound like I'm saying that because it's not. That's not what I'm trying to say. Um, but I mean, like faces, faces and hands are unbelievably difficult. They're so hard. Um, I've been drawing seriously for 6 years now, and I still struggle with faces and hands on a daily basis. So I know a lot of people that have like asked me for critiques or help with their drawing. They they weigh very heavily on stylized art to cover up the fact that they're not good at drawing hands or feet. So try not to lean on them is what I'm trying to say. They're great. I started drawing in an anime style um, many years ago, and then I stopped because I was an idiot. And I wish I had never stopped drawing, because stopping and starting again, you basically just start over at square one. But at the same time, if you have the ability to practice drawing that difficult style, the more realistic style, practice studying really hard like that, then your manga is going to look so much better, because you're going to know all these little tips and tricks that nobody else knows in the manga world. Or, I don't want to say that. A lot of other beginners don't know or don't use. Let's put it that way. Because the friggin' masters of manga, they're better than some traditional artists. Yeah, totally understand what you're saying. Don't worry, hands. Hands are terrible for me. Yeah, hands are. So hands have this feature. They are extremely expressive. You can look here at this hand I drew for Mercy. It's very, very rough gestural, but it is exceptionally expressive in the same way that a face is. They have this life to them, and the reason is because they have so much motion, so much range of motion, and we look at them all the time. Like, you look at your hands probably more than any other part of your body on a daily basis. So you're used to looking at hands, and so when you try to draw them, they're one of those things that you almost immediately will notice, ooh, that's not right. And it's not that there's a you're able to spot things that are not right a lot easier than you are to spot things that are right. Does that make any sense? You can spot mistakes faster than you can spot like that one thing that you did right. And that's just human nature, unfortunately. We are really good at spotting something that's off. It's a part of your brain that does this weird thing, and they call that capability. Ooh, I don't like that. I'm not happy with his eyes. Let me bring up my reference for him again. The ability to notice something is not quite right. They call it the uncanny valley, and you'll see it with like really creepy dolls and like robot faces. Those robots that have faces. They're humanoid, but they're not quite right. And so your brain is looking at them and going, that looks like a person's face, but there is something about it that is just not quite right. It's not quite perfect. And so, yep, and that face was not quite perfect. So we're going to wipe that out. We're going to come back in here. That looks good. These cheekbones, though, they come down. I'm pulling my reference here directly from the only one. The more you look at it, the weirder it gets. No, it's totally true, and you are definitely not the only one. Almost everyone on the planet can look at it and notice that it's wrong, and that's the difficult part of doing art. Is everyone, even the non-artists, are gonna tell when something is not quite right. That's the crux of it, as it were. They will know almost sooner than you do, and They will tell you. However, here's my caveat. I actually have grown to like that about people, especially non-artists. They will oftentimes be a lot more truthful with you, because they don't know that you spent 40 hours working on something to try to get it perfect. They see the one little thing and they're like, man, that looks weird. I don't know what it is about this one little bit, but it looks weird. And they'll tell you right out. And it sucks the first couple of times that happens. I'm not gonna lie, the first 20 or 30 times that somebody like just really like honestly told me what they thought about some of my art, it can be depressing. Um, but I have learned personally to kind of take it as a learning moment. Um, if they see something that I didn't, and they can tell me what it is that they're seeing, or at least point me there, I make notes of it. So I get sketchbooks where I've like had somebody talking to me about another piece of art, and I stopped and I wrote a little quick note about what they said, because it actually is the most honest kind of critique you're going to get is somebody that you don't even know, that has no vested interest in your emotional well-being. As sad as that sounds, they don't care, and so they don't feel bad if they hurt your feelings, and you'll get some serious, honest critiques out of them, and that's how you can learn to get better the fastest. Um, People that are brutally honest with you, that brutal honesty cuts through all the mom syndrome, where the mom's like, oh, my baby is so perfect. It's good. It's good to have somebody in your corner. It's good to have somebody that supports you and tells you you're doing great. Don't get me wrong, but I've got friends who surrounded themselves with those people, and their drawing skills hit a plateau really, really quick. Um, you get to that point where everybody says you're doing great, and then you have no incentive to keep getting better. And you always want to try to get better. Like, if even if I'm drawing for the next 30 years, there's always going to be something I can get better at. Maybe it's watercolor this week, maybe it's oil paints next week. There's always something you can be doing to get better. So that those honest critiques from time to time can be just they they suck, but once you kind of get over that emotional shock, um, you will, if you like stop and you really think about what was said in those critiques, you can get so good so fast. Okay, let's see. This is the difficult part because his hand is in this kind of foreshortened shape, and I kind of want to have like this. And he's got these little claws on his hand too, which is really not conducive to a good look, because you don't get that like finger point. You get these kind of like weird claw things. So I'm going to kind of over accentuate some of these knuckles here to kind of really sell this gaunt hand. That I'm going for. Kind of tuck that thumb down there. put that other spike right there. I'm trying really hard to not mix up those spikes and her hand. I want there to be a clear separation, and once I go back over this, what I'm going to end up doing is I'll actually darken the line on the back side of her hand. And this is something you can actually do with pen and paper if you're practicing. Line weight is one of the This is a way advanced trick that I'm teaching you way early, and I hope that you take it and run with it, and your stuff will be awesome. So I'm going to knock him back a little bit. I'm going to knock her back a little bit. And I'm just going to create a new layer to show you this. Switch over to the pen tool. So a thick, that's too thick. Hold on. Shrink that up. Okay. So a thin line, and I'm on the wrong layer now. Dang it. Okay. Thin lines, when paired with thicker dark lines, will appear to be in front of whatever they're on top of. So really simply, I'm just kind of, that thumb is awful. Black. Thumbs, right? So I'm just going to put a thicker line on the parts of her hand that go in front of Reaper. And that's too much, but it'll get the point across when I get done. So just the points that kind of go in front of Reaper. And then his line work will be thinner, and it will automatically appear to go farther back into the distance as I kind of tone that even further back down. And I can even do it with him on top of himself. That hand is in front of his body, so I'll darken that line there, and then the lines behind it being thinner will kind of sell that idea. This is a really bad example of it. I usually will do the lines and then go back over one of them to just darken that one that needs to be darkened up. But I think I'm almost to that point where I gotta start doing that. Zoom in a little bit. Let's just start working on it, hey? So I'll darken that line up, and it will actually force a feeling of being behind the other one. You don't have to do the whole line, just like a little part of it. That'll sell that idea. A little bit of a cheek ridge going on there. This program is called Sketchbook Pro. It's made by Autodesk, and this program is actually free. They released it for free to everyone earlier this year. I want to say like January, and it is amazing. It is the closest digital thing to drawing on pen and paper that I've ever used. And because it's free now, if you got a smartphone, you can get it on your smartphone and draw with your finger, and then upload, like, if you connect to your account, they will connect directly to your computer. I want to leave those eyes blank, because I'll just throw some color behind there, not quite as dark. But yeah, this is Autodesk Sketchbook. And I cannot possibly recommend it enough. Yeah, I was really against this program for a long time because I hated things that were new, and I needed to get the hell over that really fast, because once I started using this program, I immediately fell in love, and I have no intentions of ever going back. That's too forward. Or, I'm sorry, it pulled it too far back, so it looks like a hair metal, death metal hairstyle that's pulled behind his ear. I don't want that look. Give him a little tough, darken that line a little bit. All right. That's what I like to see. That looks good. Hopefully I wasn't rambling too much about crazy unimportant things. I tend to ramble. I do apologize about that. Do I have spacebar set up on this? No, I have undo set up on that. stroke. Need to be the space bar. That's better. A major thing about drawing, this always really got me. Your body is designed to kind of draw straight lines or straight curves in a specific place. And if you can turn the canvas or turn the piece of art so that that placement lines up correctly with your arm, your lines are gonna look way better every time. I'm kind of drawing through her hand here. That's because I know that what's behind her hand is actually really important, and I can always erase that bit in a minute. But I wanted to get the placement of this kind of shoulder poof down correctly with his arm twisting up like that, because that kind of builds the structure for his entire arm to come off from there, and build that narrative a little bit better. You always want to try to draw through if you can. And if you notice right here, I added thickness to that material. It's like a band of leather that goes around his arm. Beginning artists, when I first started, I totally didn't do this. So tend to move your hand and your arm and wrist instead of the paper. Ugh. Yeah, everybody does. Everybody does. But here's the thing, I'm trying to stay right in front of the camera. When you pull a line, like if you were to sit down and take a piece of paper and pull a straight line, as straight as you could, more likely than not, it's about a 40-degree angle across the table in front of you. So kind of starts at your left side, or I'm assuming you're right-handed. If you're left-handed, switch these. Starts at your left side, and it goes out away from you to the right side, and it kind of transitions from one to the other. That's the straightest line you're ever going to get, and your body will be perfectly fine pulling that straight line over and over again. And it's about 40 degrees. It's a 40-degree line, and that's because it's actually using your shoulder and your elbows to pull that line rather than your wrist. Your wrist only likes to do little tiny motions, little tiny strokes. But your shoulder and your elbow, they can do these long, straight strokes. Or you can get nice curves by twisting at the elbow rather than the wrist. Or even bigger by twisting at the shoulder and not the wrist. So that 40-degree angle, if your paper is in front of you and you're drawing this way, if you turn that, now that angle is still the same to your body, but the paper is turning, so you can get like different angles on the paper by turning the paper and just pulling the same line over and over again. If you ever watch like professional artists actually draw, they'll do that. They just spin the paper and they'll turn it around and they'll go a different direction, and then they'll spin it back and they'll go back. But yeah, elbows and shoulders rather than your wrist, and then add thickness to things. Materials always have thickness, and you see that every day. You know that my shirt has a thickness even though it's really thin. My headphones have a thickness to them. Every little piece of them has some thickness. So making sure to kind of add that little bit of thickness detail in there will all of a sudden make your stuff really kind of sell as being like really grounded. Hope that helps. I hope that makes sense. Again, I know I'm getting kind of rambly. Okay, so we got his elbow, his big old gauntlets that come down. So bring that bicep in. as I'm seeing this, I have moved his hand placement ever so slightly in this drawing without even thinking about it. But does this hand placement work better? Is the question. It gives me a little bit more separation from her hand, and I like that. We're gonna keep it. As I erase everything. I'm erasing for a specific reason. I want to eliminate the little sketch bit that I just did and really just keep the final product. I'm gonna have to go to another layer, tuck it way low, kind of get that hand placement in there. And I can even actually, I just realized, now that I've done this, now that I've extended her hand a little bit farther away, what I can actually do is do an overlap, where his hand is actually coming over her arm and pointing, and that will help sell that narrative of she's getting in his way. It's what Bob Ross would call a happy little accident, and I am going to take full use of it. A little bit more. Get that thumb in there. Perfect. I'm liking that. Get that gesture of that hand rolling over. The other thing that I really recommend, especially as a young new artist, go out and practice drawing what you see. It's going to be hard at first, especially if you practice, like going to a coffee shop and practice drawing people over and over and over again. It's not easy. Nobody said it was going to be easy. But if you think about this when you're doing it, you think about the pieces of the body that you're drawing. Think of them as like balloons. Okay, so like this arm here for Reaper, right? This arm has a full shape. I'm actually gonna go. We're gonna boop, and we're gonna go bright red. That'll work. So it's got a full shape to it, right? It's this big sausagey kind of balloon shape that the far side of is beyond where we can see. We can only see one side. So I can get away with only showing you the curves on one side of it, and then maybe something to kind of tell you, hey, this thing kind of wraps around. I can cheat this system It's a bad cheat. Don't listen to me. There we go. I can kind of cheat this system and tell you, hey, this is a rounded object because I'm putting a little bit of a shadow on it, and I'm putting curved edges on it, and the lines that I'm putting on it are kind of curved. But in reality, it's this big voluminous shape, right? It's got another side to it even. And then his arm that connects further than that, his upper arm, it comes off and is a cylinder of its own right there. It kind of connects there. So that cylinder back there connects to his shoulder, and his shoulder connects to his body. And I am just kind of simplifying as much as I possibly can to only show you the outer edges. However, when you're drawing it, you really should be thinking about what's the actual shape of that full thing. What's the shape of it? And if you're just starting out, I would strongly suggest thinking about it as simple shapes. Simple shapes. Cylinders or boxes. You can put boxes. So I can visualize that box, and then I visualize the other box as it kind of comes into this shape here. So I know that now that I have two boxes, and they are stacked on top of each other. One box is there, and the other box comes back. Is there. So I've got two boxes now. And now I know that the arm has to go inside of those boxes. Those boxes are locked. And if I wanted to change this angle on his arm real quick, if I wanted to draw his arm somewhere else, if I move those boxes first, so let's say I wanted to have his arm come out from his body, I can move that box, and then move the other box, and then put his arm inside of those two boxes. And so I would end up with, you know, an arm that comes off here. And I could do that much quicker if I've kind of visualized that arm in a box mentally before I try to replicate that shape on the paper. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. There's a really good YouTube channel that I'm going to recommend. It's Proko, Proko, Stan Prokopenko. He does amazing. Let me grab that color again. He does amazing life drawing from models, and he teaches a whole class on drawing the human form, like one little individual piece at a time. Great stuff. Highly recommend him. You can learn a lot from his classes. But it all comes down to you got to get out there and draw. You got to get out there and do. And tackle the things that you find hard. It's not easy. It's definitely a difficult decision to make to go after the thing that you're worst at. But if you tackle the thing that you're worst at, all of a sudden you're no longer the worst at that. And then your drawing will be much, much better. And then you can go to the thing that you're struggling with next. There's always going to be something you're struggling with. But if you always go after that thing that you're having trouble with, you will be amazed with how rapidly you can get really, really good. I might be able to find. I gotta get off here in a minute, but I might be able to find some of my really old stuff that I really, really regret. Yeah, his stuff's amazing, and I'm glad that that makes a lot of sense. I'm glad that that helps. It's not easy to visualize those shapes. It's really not. That part of this is really, really foreign to the human brain. It's not something that we instinctively think to put things in boxes and build shapes around them. But that's what those exercises are trying to get you to do, is to see the shape and move the shape first, because it's easy to put the arm inside of that box once you move that box. And it's easy to move that box quickly and easily. It's not easy to draw a full arm and then move that full arm and draw that whole arm again. That's really difficult to do, and that's really time consuming. You want to cut down as much extra work as you possibly can. So I'm seeing this hand. I'm thinking this hand is a little bit small. So we're going to cut this hand off. And I just screwed that up, so we're going to start over again. This is a trick that only works in digital. You can't really do this in pen and paper. You have to just erase the whole thing and start over. I am just going to cut this. We're going to say cut, new layer, paste. And because I think that hand is small, I am just going to grow it bigger. That looks about right. That's blurry as all get out. Turn that one off. Tone this down a little bit. And then I'll draw that on top again. That's got to move up. Thinking about that wrist position. I'm thinking about the narrative that I'm trying to sell. And I am good with it being there. Okay, so try the best you can to avoid tangents. You have possibly heard people talk about tangents if you watch videos like Stan's stuff. What they are talking about is right here, right there. I have a line coming along the chin. Here, I'm going to switch back over to red. I'll show you. So I have this line coming down the chin, and it keeps going. I think when you draw each layer, do you merge them? Also, when's your next stream? I'd be happy to watch. My next stream, I am not sure. Probably Probably Saturday will be the next stream that oh no, Sunday, probably Sunday, that I do my next stream. I'm gonna try to stream more regularly. This week's kind of a all right. Can you hear me now? Perfect. Okay. Where was I? Your question about layers. Once I get these layers drawn, yes, I will flatten them all together. You can do drawings with lots and lots of layers. It gets very confusing. I've done some massive layer drawings. I think the most I ever put into a picture was upwards of 300. It was difficult to keep track of what I was doing and where. You have lots of little layers that, like, one layer does one thing and another layer does another thing, and you're like, oh, I meant to do this kind of a line on this layer, but I drew it on the other layer. Ah, dang. So you get really confused. So I personally will definitely flatten these once I get a little bit more cleaned up with this art. I'm just trying to get this line art kind of cleaned up, and then I'll do the flattening. Ugh, hands. Such a pain. if his thumb has that hook on it or not. Yep. Yeah, his thumb most certainly has that stupid hook. In fact, he has a double digit on his thumb. A single digit on all his other fingers. All right. Next stream, I don't know if you heard me for that. There was some cutout there. I will definitely be streaming this Sunday. I'm going to try maybe to stream on Saturday night, but I will definitely be streaming this Sunday. My week schedule is kind of in flux right now. Still trying to figure out what my my weekend is going to look like. But I would be glad to have you again on the stream. Spin that back to straight. Yeah, I like that. I like that little reach out over her arm. Looks nice. I'm digging it. I wish I could have got more done. I actually need to call it a night. Thank you for tuning in. I will pick this up again. You know what? Let me clean this up and I'll flatten these too. Shrink that. Those are good. Flatten that. So now that is all one. And eventually all this stuff will get cleaned up underneath. You won't even see it anymore. You'll be left with just this perfect line art. And then I'll put some color underneath that. And it'll look awesome. Yeah. I'm liking that a lot. Alright. Thanks for watching. I will hopefully see you again. And if you ever have any questions, feel free to hit me up in the comments. If you ever want me to take a look at your stuff, let me know. I'd be more than happy to look at it. I'll even stream it if you want, and we can talk it over. All right, have a great night.